All right. Welcome everyone to ICF Singapore chapters event on a live Q&A on insurance indemnity coverage. So this is a new membership benefit that we have launched this year for our exclusively for ICF Singapore members. We've got one more person joining in.
All right. See, we're gonna have a full house before we know.
Yeah, so we really want to use this session here to help answer questions that members might have with regards to insurance indemnity. Why do we need to get covered as coaches? What are the different scenarios that coaches might face when insurance indemnity will come in hand? And so especially with us this evening, we've got Hui Hui from Financial Alliance, and we've also got Stan, who's graduated from NYU in Economics and Business in 2018 and subsequently joined AIG's graduate program as an underwriter. So he's here to help us together with Hui Hui to answer all the questions that members might have when it comes to insurance indemnity. Right. Before I hand it over to Hui Hui and to Stan, I think it's also important to introduce Debbie Hogan, our Director of Membership, who's really put in a lot of effort and energy going through different insurance companies to then finalize this recommendation for our chapter members. So Debbie, would you want to share a little bit of background context of how this new membership benefit comes about?
Actually, I didn't do the hard work. We did. I contacted 5 brokers who represented an assortment of insurance providers, and I kind of interviewed them. We interviewed each other, and we became very highly recommended by one of our members, Ann Play. So I went with her. I went with Wee, and that just got the ball rolling. And then I think, because this is new to Singapore, you and I talked a lot about how to customize this new offer, because it's really not even in the language and in the existing policies about the special area, which is now a thing. It's a real thing. So we explored how could we kind of customize the language to really make it available for coaches, because coaches are funny. They really wanted the insurance, the market, to really represent this area of practice, which is not just a little side area. It is a huge area of practice now. So you listened, and then AIG stepped up, and we have this great collaboration between the 3 of us. So ICF Singapore, Alliance, and AIG. And to me, it's a beautiful partnership.
Debbie, would you share a little bit more about what's the relationship so that the coaches, our members, can have the context of what role is ICF playing, what role is Financial Alliance playing, and also what role is AIG playing?
My understanding is my mandate as an EXCO member was to please explore the indemnity insurance as a benefit for members. So that was my role, and that's what I did. So I contacted the broker, who then contacts AIG, who is a provider of the insurance. So it's sort of a 3-step process. And I guess nowadays, this is the process in which insurance is provided, is the broker sort of scans the landscape and sees what does the client, which is our chapter, what will best serve the client. So to me, it's a lovely offering, because AIG offers sort of the standard package, but also a customized package. And then if the members' specs don't fit either of these, then there are other insurance providers. So I think it is a win-win, because we're offering something that has not been offered before. So in terms of the initial contact, I think the general placeholder is our chapter. For ICF members who have curiosity or don't quite understand what it's for or how it works. And then when they're ready to apply, then they go to Hui, and there is a Google form. And it's an information gathering form for we just sort of screen the eligibility of our member. And if they fit this standard package, then there's a quote pad that sort of has a standard offering with the amount of revenue and then the amount of coverage. And then we just vets that, and if it meets and the person meets the requirements, then it's sent to AIG. Then they respond with a policy and a premium. So now I am the proud owner of a policy. I've paid my premium. I'm covered. I might be the first one. Yeah. So I very proudly, feel a lot of peace of mind, because this is a thing. A lot of members, our members were saying, I'm starting to not get work. The potential client is saying, hey, if you don't have insurance, maybe we can't use you as a provider. So there was this discussion that started to form, and a lot of concern. So this is sort of a sign, this is the writing on the wall that we really needed to get somewhere. And fortunately, it was just that wonderful timing and the wonderful partnership. So I'm very pleased to introduce Huihui and Stan, and I would love for you all to take it from here.
Yeah. And thanks, Debbie. And Chenya, Sam, and Serene, given that this is a rather small group, I think it's also an opportunity for you, if you have any questions, to just unmute yourself and direct them to Huihui and Stan, because they will be able to most address it for you. Okay.
Y'all want to show your faces so we can have like a real personal connection instead of through your photo?
I apologize because it's not very convenient. I just had my shower, hair very wet in my pajamas, so I feel a bit embarrassed.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for coming anyway.
Good to see you, Sam. Serene, are you there?
So do you guys have questions? Since we've got the experts here in the room, and one of the questions that Stan and I were exploring was about the data protection. That's something that has emerged as a big question of how is the data stored and how are members, their information protected. That's a big topic. So there's that, and many other questions that you might want to explore.
Actually, Debbie, shall we? Why not let's hear from Chenyan and Sam and even Serene, right? Were they already looking for insurance, or what was it that got them interested to come into this session? And at least we get to know their why, right?
Yeah.
So I attended the last session as well, and I've already I think I needed to fill up a form to get it going, and I've done that with Huihui, and Huihui will be getting back to me. But data protection is definitely one of the concerns. If something happened to my client data, then due to not my own fault, but somebody else who hacked me or whatever it is, then where is the protection? There's also the dissatisfied client. Thank goodness until now I don't have this, but we potentially, the longer we coach, the more likelihood you will meet somebody who may not understand that it is a partnership, or through the partnership felt like they were shortchanged and they wanted to sue. So those are really my two biggest one. These are the two that really is on my mind when I sign on for the insurance.
Okay, got you. I put them onto chat so we can always just refer over there as well. Chenyan, what about you? What got you here?
Well, actually, I'm just very curious to know about this product. I'm very new to coaching. I haven't met the 18 months requirements yet. I haven't been practicing for 18 months yet. So I think probably it's a bit difficult for me to get the insurance now. And I'm okay to wait a bit. Yeah. So, but I think it's nice that to understand it first. Then when I'm ready, I can enroll it more easily. Yeah.
Sure.
Mm.
Serene, are you there? Okay, so no worries. Let's go on first. Stan, would you maybe want to take on Sam's question first, and we can kickstart from there?
Yes, sure. So I think I'll take it. So yeah, Sam, your first concern was data, your client's data that you're holding, and at the end of a breach and your client's data gets disclosed, you know, the liability will be on you. Basically, the PPC will come to you and launch investigations. So that would be a hindrance to your business. There may be some costs involved as well. And also the PDPA will fine your company for
sure.
the data breach and disclosure. The thing about this concern that you have is actually not what our policy, the product that I'm explaining today covers. The product that I'm explaining about today is more for your second concern, which is your disgruntled, unsatisfied client. That would be the crux of this insurance coverage that I will be explaining.
Okay.
Yeah, with regard to your former concern, the first concern, that falls under cyber policy.
Okay.
Yeah. So
would there be an instrument that will help us cover this part? Because it is a real concern, but yeah, I mean, we may be a target. It's not that we didn't do our job, but if for some reason we were targeted, then how can we be protected? If this is not the product, is there any other products or advice that you can give us?
Yeah, so actually the slides that I have prepared today is more for your second concern, which I'll get to it later. But since you're asking about the former, basically a cyber insurance policy is more or less quite standard across the market. It doesn't really, in terms of prevention, it doesn't really prevent anything, because at the end of the day, ultimately, it's up to your company's cyber hygiene, your company's cyber security infrastructure, and also your employees' education level. So whether are they in the know, maybe have they attended any courses like to teach them about things like phishing and scams. So what we do have some pre-loss services if a client purchases a cyber insurance policy with AIG. One of them would be a very detailed, in-depth scan of the vulnerabilities and observations. We found out that your company's networks have been vulnerable to certain malware. Your company has not been patching your softwares regularly. So we do these kind of scans. I mean, when companies come to us with an interest to buy cyber insurance, we'll do a non-intrusive scan. So it's more of a scan to assess your infrastructure, but less detailed. So that from there, you will actually already get knowledge about where your holes and gaps lie. Where our coverage comes in most handy is actually more of a damage control kind of thing. So when an alleged or actual breach happens, what happens is that we provide like a one point of contact. We call it a cyber breach coach. This one point of contact is actually a law firm. So multiple law firms that you can choose from that will be inbuilt into the claims costs in your insurance policy. So with this point of contact, they will provide you with legal advice. On the back end, we also have a forensics team, IT forensics team, which can help you investigate, what happened and tell you immediately what you can do to prevent things from worsening. Right. Now that you've been breached. So with these IT forensics vendors, we have KPMG or Kroll. So clients can choose that. And then the third thing, which would be PR expenses. So we have a PR crisis crisis firm that will help you manage any PR related incidents. So for example, or it was disclosed in the news that this company had a breach and they lost X amount of their clients' data. So this PR firm will try and mitigate that PR damage of your company. So it's a very holistic solution where the moment you have a alleged or actual breach, you can call this 24/7 hotline. And this one point of contact, which is a legal firm, will get information from the forensics teams and from the PR team, and then give you advice. So that person is your one point of contact. It's very convenient for you. So all in all, I would say that this product is more of a damage control thing than anything else. I mean, of course, there are also claims for things like investigation costs. If your company gets breached, your company's data gets disclosed, your client's data gets disclosed, there are investigation costs involved that will be paid for, and any fines that are insurable by law, it will be paid for as well. Other forms of cyber exposure that are covered is, for example, cyber network interruption. So for example, if a hacker breaches, let's just say that your company is very reliant on the networks for your day-to-day operations. I think what would probably be more apt for network interruption coverage would be, let's just say, in e-commerce, where my revenue is dependent on the network, and somebody breaches my network and it's jammed. I can't operate. So there will be coverage for that as well. Opportunity cost coverage, and also things like ransomware. So hacker breaches your systems, your data storage, telling you, hey, I have all your clients' data, pay this ransom in whatever cryptocurrency, I won't do anything. So there are ways for our vendors that can negotiate with them, and also the claims amount, which is to pay that ransom if need be. Yeah, so I think I more or less covered like how what a cyber policy entails and how it can help your company.
Thanks so much. This is very comprehensive and you explained it quite well. One thing to note is that a lot of us coaches are actually solopreneur, so we don't have a big team or use commercial networks in general. We use, just for your understanding so that perhaps you have other things to add, is that we probably use our home network or our office network that we rent, an office room or a co-working space that we may have a membership with. And a lot of the data will be actually stored on our own laptops, or we may have a cloud-based storage system that we use like OneDrive or Dropbox and things like that we would generally use. And there will also be a lot of software that we use like Zoom. So this could be also a potential security risk. And so these are the sort of generally, that's how most of us would operate. Some of us do have teams, and that is where, again, also fall into two buckets, those people who actually have an office space and those who don't, which means they work from home, just like what we have been doing for the past almost 2 years now.
Understand. So to go up there, I'm not trying to scare an SME or sole proprietor.
No.
As compared to, let's just say, a company, a big company, for someone like me personally, I have to, even though I'm working from home and I'm logging on to my own home network, I have to log on to like a VPN, which security. In contrast to, let's just say, if I were to run my own business and, my device, I mean, for me, honestly, my own personal devices, I don't really care. Like, I don't encrypt and stuff, but a company does. So I think there's some exposure there. With regard to data that's stored on the cloud, for example, in the event of a breach and client's data is taken from, let's just say, OneDrive and disclosed, yes, even though, those are your client's data, ultimately, the OneDrive, for example, will hold the ultimate liability in that sense. So that's like, there's some damage to you in that sense. From an insurance company and even from your point of view, you can point the finger at OneDrive.
Okay.
Yeah, but
thank you.
I would say that your concerns are more for data that is specifically stored on your devices.
Correct.
And let's just say that if you have an office with many employees on their devices as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem. So maybe I'll just go through the product that we were supposed to speak about today, which is professional indemnity. So I think I'll try and share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So today I'll be talking about professional indemnity. My name is Stan. I'm an underwriter from AIG. So objectives for today. What are we going to go through? A brief refresher on professional indemnity. For those of y'all who may not know about professional indemnity, it's an introduction, a very brief, hopefully simple introduction to what this is all about. And then after that, I'll introduce you to our product, which is an instant quote pad. I'll go through what are the criteria that you will need to qualify for this product, because this product has very low premiums, very low deductibles. It's mostly for SMEs and industries with a low risk exposure, companies with a low risk exposure as well. And yeah, after that, I'll maybe field some questions if you guys have any pressing matters. So a brief refresher on professional indemnity. What is professional indemnity? Basically, it arises out of the provision of or failure to provide professional services to their clients. It covers only civil cases and does not cover criminal cases. Claims must be made by a third party, usually the insured's client. So what I mean by this is you as the coaching company cannot trigger the policy. The policy is triggered only when your client, does something. And it's on a claims made basis. This means that claims are made and reported during the policy period only and not once the policy period is over. Yeah, so actually this may sound maybe a bit overwhelming or a bit confusing, but if I were to summarize this product, the crux of this product is basically this product covers your failure to provide professional services. So Sam, is like what you said, disgruntled client, essentially. But then again, it's there are some additional coverages that this policy provides, some extra bells and whistles, which I'll go through later. So why do professionals need PI insurance? First is regulation, legal requirement. Some firms like architects and engineers, it's a must from the government to get it. Contractual obligations. Maybe you have a client you're trying to sign a contract with a client and win a contract, and the client says you must have a professional indemnity insurance. Financial protection, of course, to protect your reputation. Customer protection, to give them a peace of mind, and also we live in an increasingly litigious environment, so where people find faults more or something. So that's another reason why we would need PI insurance. So this would be, the next part would be a sort of a short summary of the policy that you'll be getting, professional indemnity. So these are the main coverage areas. First would be civil liability, which is essentially the failure to perform professional services and the damages resulting from it. Next would be intellectual property and infringement of IP. So for example, my course materials, let's just say that somebody, oops, I don't know why it changed. Okay, let's just say that one of our students, saw a picture that I used or something in my course materials, course notes or slides that they drew or something like that. And then they want to, take me to court because I infringe upon their IP, then they take me to court. This is covered. Defamation, lost documents, fraud, dishonesty of own employees. So this fraud and dishonesty coverage is more of your employees. So for example, if you hired a coach and that person maybe is providing a quotation or pricing to your clients, and your employee actually sort of elevates the price, takes the money and pockets the difference, right? And then let's just say your client finds out that they have been frauded by your employee, this and then they choose to take you to court, this will cover. And of course, the defense costs related to either the failure to perform professional services or maybe fraud and dishonesty or IP, such that they want to take you to court and then you have to defend yourself in court. So this is basically the bread and butter with a few bells and whistles of the coverage. There are actually more forms of coverage, which are extensions, inquiry attendance expenses, with a sublimit of $100,000. So basically, if you're going to be inquired and you're asked to attend like a hearing or something, this will cover up to $100,000, no matter what sum insured that you choose. There's a coverage for lost documents. So let's just say that your clients entrust you to care for their documents, and I don't know why my slides keep changing. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, to care for your documents, and there's destruction, damage, distortion, erasure, mislay, and which you are legally responsible for. And somehow all these things happen when you are performing your professional services. So that's what's covered. Automatic new subsidiaries. So let's just say that you set up a subsidiary, it's automatically covered. So you don't really need to tell us mid-policy. You can tell us when you're renewing the policy itself. However, one thing to note is that the subsidiaries that you set up has to meet the definition of a subsidiary, which can be found in the definition section of our policy wording. So yeah, if you guys ever come on board and have a policy with AIG, you will see in the policy wording, there'll be a definition section that explains what you may not know. Advancement of defense costs. So typically claims are paid out after everything. You can claim it from us, but in this case for defense costs, we're able to pay out the cost for your defense before the settlement of the claim, but it is subject to prior written approval. Joint ventures, we cover your joint ventures. Previous business name. So for example, if maybe you changed your business name mid-policy, or maybe you've been insured with us for 5 years, for example, and you changed your business name, this will cover for when, even for cases when your business name was the old one. Key man loss essentially is like death of your key man or something happens to your key man. Vicarious liability. So vicarious liability is an extension that covers, let's just say that you subcontract or you hire someone to conduct your professional services for your client, right? So that person, that subcontracted party's services are covered because they are performing the professional services for you. And of course, reputational crisis. So this would come in the form of like a PR expenses. So what is, sorry, I meant to say exclusions, is an error. What is excluded in the policy? Antitrust, bodily injury, property damage, contractual liability that go beyond the duty of professional services provided. So, okay, this is can be a bit of a tricky one, because ultimately, when you sign a contract with your client, you're telling them, hey, you're paying me this, and I'm giving you these services, right? So ultimately, if you do not fulfill those services, they have grounds to take you to court and win and seek damages. This contractual liability is only if you go beyond, for example, if you go beyond what is written in the contract and the client, sues you for that, it won't be covered, because ultimately it's what you signed, what they signed up for, not anything extra. Performance guarantees, which is like a guarantee that this will happen if you attend my training. Cost assessment costs. Infrastructure. So for example, if there's a power failure or something like that, and then they're not happy that, the power failed while I was attending your training, but that's more of like Singapore Power's fault. Intentional acts. Misdeeds, so criminal, dishonest, or fraudulent acts. So this dishonest or fraudulent acts does not apply to your employees, does not apply to your own employees' fraudulent acts. Yeah, so that's just a detail over there. patents and trade secrets. So these are the only type of IPs that are not covered. So as you can tell just now in the previous slide, there's infringement of IP. That's one of the main coverage areas. However, patents and trade secrets are the types of IPs that are excluded from the policy. Pollution, trade debts, US-Canada exposure, and war on terrorism. So basically, what I've just done is run through review the coverages and also the exclusions in your policy wording. So next, I'll go through the product that we are proposing to you all, which is an instant quote pad. So what is a PI instant quote pad? Basically, it's a very simple and streamlined proposal form. It's 2 pages. It has a predetermined premium retention, which is like your deductible in a motor insurance, and terms for companies with a low PI risk exposure. And how this predetermined premium and terms are gotten is through based on your client's revenue, based on your revenue, the industry that you're in, and the sum insured that you pick. So more details about the IQP. So this is basically how the form will look like. I think we will give you a Google sheet to fill in. However, this is the actual form that we have. So the details that she'll be asking from you are over here. So first and foremost, it asks you about revenue, asks you about your revenue range. So as you can see in this table, below 250,000, depending on the sum insured that you pick, there are the corresponding premium prices over here. Likewise, if the higher the revenue range you go and the higher sum insured that you pick, right, the higher the premium will be. So yeah, it's a very simple table. Types of services covered. So employment agents, blah, blah, blah. I think the only important thing to you is provision of training services. So as you can see, you should be eligible so far, right? If your revenue does not exceed 2.5 million, if you choose one of these options, and if you provide training services, so far you are eligible. I'll move on to the next part of the form. So of course, you pick a limit of liability depending on the amount of coverage that you want, depending on your revenue range, the premium there. Next, so there's more criteria to meet, right? So as you can see here, are you registered? Have you been registered in Singapore and established for more than 18 months? If no, if any of these is a no, unfortunately, you are not eligible for these low premiums. That being said, that doesn't mean that you still cannot have a professional indemnity policy. It's still possible. It's just that, unfortunately, the premium may not be as low, may not be as competitive. Yeah, so certain criteria is like, do you have any exposure and operations in the US and Canada, so on and so forth. So all this have to be fulfilled in order to qualify. Moving on, yeah. So on the second page, the last page of the form, you will see certain terms that are put into place. So for example, retention is $10,000. How the retention works is like something like your deductible that you have for your motor insurance, or sometimes even your health products. So for example, if I have a claim of 100,000, I have 100,000 in damages or whatsoever. Basically the first 10,000 I will pay, and then the remaining 90,000 I will get to claim. So the objective of this is not that we want to be mean or anything. We want to be scrimp on clients. The objective is more so to prevent very frivolous and anything just anyhow claim kind of thing. We want to make sure that the claim is substantial, and it will definitely hurt you enough, right, so that you make that claim. So it's just to prevent any like small, really frivolous claims more than anything. Territory and jurisdictions is a worldwide coverage, excluding USA and Canada. This is the policy wording. Your retroactive date is inception date. So this need not be you need not bother about this. some of the endorsements and exclusions. So just now I went through with you some of the exclusions that you see that's inbuilt in the policy wording. These are exclusions that we will place on top of those exclusions. So for example, specific activities exclusion, I don't think it will affect coaching companies. Absolute bodily injury and property damage exclusion. So this will affect you guys. So for example, if you are coaching and somehow, during your activities of your coaching, somehow somebody gets injured in your classroom or something like that, unfortunately that will not be covered. For fraud and dishonesty, for your own employees, fraud and dishonesty, it's sub-limited to $10,000. So basically, if let's just say your own employee, the cost for the coaching package was $2,000, and then he charged $20,000 for it. It's $18,000 in damages. So unfortunately, we only pay up to $10,000. Market fluctuation exclusion. So market fluctuation exclusion is basically with regard to any reduction of value or failure to appreciate of any investment or product. I don't think it will be relevant to coaching companies. I think this is more for companies that recommend assets to invest in. So I don't think it's very applicable for you all. It will not affect your coverage. Investment advice exclusion. So any investment advice, and then maybe if you somehow say, oh, you should buy this asset, it will go up, it's good for you. And then your client is unhappy, he bought the asset and then it went down and they're unhappy with investment advice. Yeah, I don't think really is applicable for your coaching companies. Sanction and endorsement is more of a regulatory thing than anything. It's just to exclude all claims related to sanctioned activities in sanctioned countries such as North Korea, Iran, Myanmar. So yeah, I think I ran through a lot of the common the exclusions and endorsements in the terms. So yeah, as I said before, if your company is not eligible and do not qualify, that does not mean that you are unable to be insured with a PI policy. It's still possible to provide a PI quotation. It's just that it depends on if your professional services falls within our PI risk appetite. And the thing about this is that you'll be subject to a full underwriting process. So instead of a very straightforward and simple form, unfortunately, you have to fill in a more comprehensive form. You have to ask for more information. And you'll be subject to a much higher premium and deductible. So this amount, instead of 10,000, it could remain at 10,000, or it could be 15, 20, 25, depending. Yeah, so I think that's about it. I'm sorry if I maybe went through things a bit fast, and I'm sorry if maybe a bit overwhelming, but yeah, if you have any questions, happy to now.
Stan, that was very comprehensive. Thank you so much. In going back to something that we mentioned in our meeting earlier this week, we talked about coverage in the US and Canada, which was a big question raised at our first meeting. And you mentioned that it can include coverage, but it would also fall under this customized policy. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned earlier, this product has a lot of criteria. It's very narrow. For example, it automatically excludes USA and Canada. Typically, Singapore insurers, and I will speak for AIG in Singapore, we are very risk averse towards companies that have a lot of US clients, Canadian clients. We're also very risk averse to Europe and Australia. Main reason is because they are very litigious as compared to companies in Asia. So that's the reason why our strategy may differ. Of course, AIG in the US would have to insure US companies, so on and so forth. Yeah, so if you have clients that are from US or Canada, that does not mean that we will totally say no. As I mentioned earlier, we would have to collect more information from you, and ultimately it would depend, I would say, on the proportion of US and Canadian clients that you have. So it's not a hard no. it's still definitely possible. It's common. It's common that we have clients who have US and Canadian clients themselves. It's just that sometimes definitely the premium will be higher, and potentially to make it a little easier for you, we'll put separate deductibles. So just now you saw it was 10,000. So for all countries it'll be 10,000, but for US and Canada it will be like 30,000 or 50,000. So yeah, it's definitely possible to work around, but I think ultimately it depends on the proportion of US exposure that your company has.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the good news and the bad news for people who have clients in those other countries. They don't have to get a separate policy. They would just have to level up the coverage premium. Okay. There's one area that was not mentioned, and that's trademark. How do you deal with if a company owns a trademark and there's a trademark infringement? Is that included or not?
Let me check the policy wording, because in our policy wording, we have maybe I can sort of pull it out for you all to see. I wanted to put the policy, the summary of the policy wording in slides, because looking at the policy wording can be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I'll just share it anyway. Okay, so can everyone see the PDF that I have here?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, these are the covers, as I went through just now. Intellectual property, so infringement over here, right? The words in bold. So if, let's just say you purchase a policy with us, and you will get this policy wording, and basically, if you see any words in bold, as I mentioned just now, there's a definition section. So these have a definition. So basically, when you see something, you know that there's a dictionary in the policy wording. So as I highlighted earlier, right, your question is about trademarks or what kind of IP. You can go to infringement, for what type of infringement, and then we'll go to the definition section. So these are the extension, more bells and whistles here.
Okay, thank you. That's good enough. Thank you.
Yeah, definitions, infringement, there you go. So still very vague, but I guess trademarks are fine. See, it's patents and trade secrets, but wait, trade secrets also has a definition as well. So patents are excluded. Trade secrets are also excluded. We can go to trade secrets, and we can see here that this is the definition of trade secrets. Yeah, so
it doesn't look like you cover trademark then. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like trademark could be. It's arguable, and I think that's the reason why ultimately, when it comes to a claim, that's the reason why there are litigation cases in court, where this will be sort of fought out. Yeah.
All right. There are some questions in the chat box. Let's see. Serene was asking, supposing that a client is a disgruntled client, but they come from 2 years before the policy was enacted, is it covered?
Okay, so this is when the thing about retroactive date comes in. So previously I mentioned that maybe I'll share my screen again for the slides to better explain this. Unfortunately, like for this specific offering with the IQB, only matters that are within the policy period, right? But however, and that's because of the retroactive date, which I'll go back to the form and show you. Yeah, so retroactive date is on inception. So what this means is basically you cannot, the policy will not cover for anything before your start date, the start date of the insurance policy. However, let's just say that you have a more customized professional indemnity policy. Sometimes the retroactive date can be, let's just say 1st January 2000 or 1st January 2015, right? This means to say that, let's just say that I start a policy today. Today is 19th August. So it goes from 19 August 2021 to 19 August 2022. But the policy has a retroactive date of 1st January 2015. So in that case, even though you did not have any coverage with AIG or any other insurer before 19 August 2021, but somehow, one of your clients comes out of the woodwork and says, hey, for a course you conducted in 2016, 1st January 2016, like they weren't happy about it, then it will be covered because the retroactive date is 1st January 2015. Or your policy starts 19 August today, 2021. So for this particular, to answer your question, for this particular product, unfortunately, no. The coverage is only from incidents that you discover, right, during the policy period, because the retroactive date is on the first day of your policy period. However,
so if I take out a policy today and I'm
Yes.
covered from today and it expires next year in a year's time,
Mhm.
and I renew my policy and I do that 2 more times, and then more than 2 years later, it's for something that I delivered, say tomorrow,
Mhm.
it will also not be covered, even though I had taken out the policy, today.
That is correct. That is correct. But I must tell you that is usually not how it is done. The reason why it is for this particular case is because the premiums, the premiums here are very low, it's very competitive, and that's the reason why we're not taking that risk exposure or liability back and back and back and back.
Mm.
In contrast, we have many clients with a customized professional indemnity policy, which have retroactive dates in 2015, for example, or 2000, right? And they continue our coverage with us every year. So regardless of when they start the policy, the coverage goes all the way back. Yeah.
So how do you get a policy that, what if I'm fine about what's before today,
Mhm.
but today I start AIG coverage. So in a way, there's better assurance for the insurer, because if it's within the year, I've got the coverage, right?
Yeah.
But then I say, going forward, I would like, all my business activities to be covered, starting from the day I start coverage with AIG. And that would be another separate quotation. But
Yes.
I'm not sure, I'm assuming it would be cheaper than if I were to say, now, I want you to give me 10 years ago when I didn't have any coverage at all. How would that work out?
Yeah, definitely. So you're absolutely right. And it makes sense. Yeah. So for example, some companies choose for the customized PI policies, some companies choose retroactive date from the day that they registered their company or started operations. Some companies will want it to be slightly cheaper, and then they don't care about a retroactive date. Maybe the retroactive date starts on the first time that they were insured with us, and then for subsequent years, the retroactive date remains the same from the first day that they were insured with us, and then for many years, for many years, the retroactive date is still the first day. So it just depends on what you guys want, and of course, that will be priced accordingly.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, there's a few more questions. Reputational, could you please clarify the extent of reputational crisis coverage?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the extent, in terms of costing, right, reputational crisis would be a full policy limit. So that depends on the sum insured that you choose. There's no sub-limit or there's no cap for each reputational crisis incident. So reputational crisis would be things that affect your reputational standing, obviously. So it can be from media reports talking about your company, publicly available data, or third-party data. So that, like, typically we'll get one of our PR vendors to give you advice, and the cost would be not from you. The cost would be from the claim amount from your sum insured in the insurance policy.
Hmm.
So just to clarify, so it's not about like, okay, for example, the coach is being sued, therefore it goes on in the news so that he lost the future business for like 1 or 2 years. So this is not covered.
That is not covered. That is more like a consequential loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the policy will not cover for the consequence.
Mm-hmm.
It's more for like, oh, okay, because of this incident, there's this news, right? So let's try and mitigate that damage.
Mm.
And an opportunity cost, like, oh, like because of this incident, right, I potentially lost X amount of dollars in business, in revenue. So that is not the case. It's not a consequential loss. It covers more of like, okay, now that this incident has created this fiasco in the media, let's use this PR firm to mitigate that risk. Yeah. Of course, it is ultimately your choice if you want to policy because of that. Yeah.
Another question, do you cover sole proprietors or is just the company?
We do cover sole proprietors.
Okay, great. I think that is it.
Can I ask a linked question? So okay, I know that the consequential loss is not covered. So the sum is up to the fees the client has paid.
The sum is up to the sum insured that you.
Yeah. Okay, but for example, one client said, okay, we have 12 sessions. I paid X amount for that 12 sessions. I want to claim those money back plus blah 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 other consequential loss. Of course, the consequential is not covered, but is the insurance cover the 12 months, 12 sessions, the fees only?
Yeah. So,
up to that fee?
So first of all, like, let's just say this client takes you to court because they're unhappy with the package, the maybe the content of the classes or whatever they've learned in class, right? First of all, defense costs, that is a definite amount that will be there. They take you to court, you have to pay for your lawyers, you have to get inquired. These costs are claimed first and foremost. However, with regard to the quantum, whether it will match up to, let's just say, the amount of the person wants 6 damages for the 12 classes, the amount of they paid for the 12 classes, right? That is a question mark because that is up to court. We up to the litigation. So that's a question mark. The thing that you'll be very sure about is, okay, lawyer tell me these are the legal fees. It's claimable. The question mark is, that is unfortunately
But if
not
the court decided the client is right, then the insurance company will pay that part, right? Okay.
Yes.
You have to pay 10,000 deductible.
After the data.
There are certain amounts that should be covered under the small claims court, less than 10,000 or less. So sometimes clients can go to the small claims court if it's less than 10,000. So you may not have to incur lawyer fees and all that. Okay. Have we, there was one point we reminded me that I wanted to tell this and put it into the recording, that the ICF chapter, the leadership does not get any kind of kickback. In fact, some of the brokers that I talked to offered a sort of kickback to the chapter for signing up with a broker for insurance. And I said, no, thank you. That would feel a little bit like a conflict of interest, that I wanted a straightforward benefit only to the membership and not to benefit a second party. So just to let everybody know, this is above board, that the chapter gets no kickback. And all of the benefit goes directly to the membership. So we've already asked for the best price, and we've been assured that this package, this quote pad, has already been offered at a below premium that they usually offer to the general public. There's already a discount embedded in that quote pad. And that if we get a higher take up, Huey, you're shaking your head. Did I misunderstand that?
The rates that we're offering is actually the same as the public rate.
Okay, thank you for that.
So I just wanted to clarify, what we are talking about is if we have a sizable numbers, we may be able to negotiate premiums moving forward, but the sizable numbers has to be like quite large. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying that. I must have misunderstood the other point. So if we get a high take-up rate, there is a possibility that the premium can be lowered. And what would be kind of a general ballpark?
To be honest, I can't really
Just
give any
curious.
indication, yeah, because that would be more like it'll fall under like a scheme. So
Yeah.
some like associations that have a list of members, and then we will have to discuss with like these associations, like, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
what's
yeah.
the rate per member?
Right.
Yeah.
And I would want to be very careful as a leadership not to, enact a campaign where it looks like we're driving it, So very important that we keep clear, this is a member benefit, and we're not driving any campaign for any kind of benefit to anyone. It's just very simple and laid out as we've discussed here. No hidden agenda.
Yeah, and the great thing is there is also no minimal sign up that's required for this policy. So even if one ICF Singapore members decide to sign up, I think that's great for her or him.
Yeah, I'm insured. I've already got my policy. So hopefully others will follow up. I know several have told me that they've signed up.
I think, Serene, you do have one last question. You do have one question in chat. And she
Yeah, I mean, it's just that I do both coaching and I also do training. Can that be covered in one policy? Yes. Great.
Yes, it will. As long as it's not in the exclusions that you see in the form. So you just got to make sure that, okay, as long as it falls in line with the types of services covered in the form, and then you look at what is excluded, and okay, service covered, I mean, the types of services, type of things excluded, nothing to do with me, then you should be fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Serena, I actually got the quote pad that we were talking about under the standardized policy. I got insurance through that format, and I do lots of coaching, but I also added training and consulting.
Okay.
And it still fell under that kind of standardized policy.
Okay. I wonder if I could have one more question. So I tend to do a lot of my work through coaching, I guess, agencies, providers. So I don't actively seek work directly. So then the client would have a contract with my coaching organization. And then my coaching organization has a contract with me as an associate. So in this instance, what is the likelihood that the client would directly make a claim against me?
So in this case, I would recommend that coaching company to get a PI policy. So the reason being is because if in the PI policy, as you know, just now I told you about the subcontractors, vicarious liability, where let's just say that my company gets the PI policy, and then I'm that coaching company, and then I get you to do coaching for half of my company. So,
Okay.
So the people who are being coached, if they're disgruntled, the liability, even if they go after you, the policy that is to be triggered should be my coaching companies, because you are my like subcontracted.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's quite interesting, because I have a coaching organization who had an associate agreement that says I require you to have this much insurance, and it was like crazy amount, because it's like either Aussie or British company, and I said it's just bad. No one's gonna give me any premiums that will make it worthwhile for me to take out insurance, and one of them actually went back and said, look, we'll get group coverage for our entire team just for the people in Singapore, because all the other country-based coaches would have those policies. Now I'm just thinking I would go back to that one other organization still asking me to provide that, and actually say to them, if you've got a PI policy, then you shouldn't expect me, like I would still consider this policy because I might have some direct work myself, but it's just that they're asking for crazy coverage, like 1 million to 10 million. I'm like, I don't even earn anywhere near that. So yeah.
So I would, like what I said earlier, like I think the reason why they are making those requests or demands is because they may not be familiar with their own PI policy and what is covered. Because if I was familiar with my PI policy and I had a company and I hired you as a subcontractor,
Yeah.
right, I will know that, okay, if the event that somebody has a complaint against you, I'm liable because you are representing me.
That's right.
Know that it's covered under the PI policy. So I don't really understand the rationale for those demands.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think I'll go back now that I understand it a bit better.
Yeah.
Also, I think in the last session, someone asked if I have a client that is, like a Singapore part of a multinational organization, perhaps an American company, but a separate legal entity, in Singapore is who I contract with, then is that sitting under regular coverage, or is that sitting under, your extra, including USA coverage?
So yeah, that would sit under Singapore.
Okay, that's great.
Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
because it's essentially the revenue that you're earning is from a
That's right.
yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you. Thank you.